Hello and good evening everybody. Now tonight you might notice I'm actually staring at the camera. So far I get it right. Now before we start, I just thought I'd answer a question because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, James, that badge there doesn't look quite right. What's going on there? Well, as you can tell, it's a bit fadey or deteriorating. Much like the sponsor. You probably don't know if you can tell, but this once said UNICEF. And as you can probably guess, this is a copy shirt bought to me by my parents years ago. I don't condone copies, but it was a gift, so I cherish it. I also seen the price of actual football shirts for top teams, so they bring this on themselves really. But I'll show you. Look, this is Barcelona. Maybe you can tell. I'll show you. Look, there's the flag of Catalonia. There's the cross of St. George, who also happens to be the patron saint of Catalonia. And there is the bottom bit for the Barcelona badge. Looking at it, that ball gives it a cheap effect. Makes it look like one of those badges they use for custom teams in Football Manager. Or the teams that they don't have the rights to use a badge for. Anyway, on with the show, shall we? As you can tell by the title, we're doing some more OCD. So, here's my book. Here's one therapy dog. And here's the other. So, shall we begin? Let's get these guys comfy. No, what? Now, if you. No, right. Yes, now I remember where I was now. It's only been one night. You'd think I'd remember, wouldn't you? Well, I did. Just took me a few seconds. Right. Sweet. One day this issue will stop when I record. But not today, it seems. How does a checking problem get worse? And as you know, checking is my big OCD thing. So, let's get into it. This way. Feeding into negative beliefs. We have seen how the act of checking can increase doubt and anxiety. Oh yeah, you're right there. It can also undermine people's confidence in themselves and can therefore seem to confirm beliefs that they hold about being careless. Research shows that people who check obsessively consistently rate their memories as poor. It makes sense then that this contributes to their checking, as they feel that they may be a liability if they stop doing it. Well, yeah, I always have to check because one day I could be right about not actually doing the thing I'm checking. You know? So let's get that bit crossed. I'm sure you know what I mean, don't you? You know, one day you're going to go outside, not lock the front door, and not realise because you convince yourself that not checking is the right thing to do because it's stupid. Because every time you go back, it's always locked. But one time, you're not going to lock it. That's why you have to check it. And that itself is why I need this book. And the therapy. However, when their memories were actually tested, there was no difference between people who did and did not have a checking problem. Now that I can believe. Let's get this right. That's about centralized. So. Selective attention. We all filter out irrelevant information from our environment. Checking focuses your attention on danger and therefore increases the amount of worries and doubts you experience. If we are in threat mode, we notice things which are consistent with this. Checking can make you go looking for trouble. See page 75. The more you check, the more you notice things which need checking which may not have troubled you before. Reassurance seeking. Asking others for reassurance is itself a form of check. If you do it repeatedly, that should itself tell you that it doesn't really work. This is because, again, if the aim is to feel completely certain about something, then you'll always find a reason not to trust the answer. That is very true. Perhaps they just wanted you to feel better. Perhaps they weren't sure themselves. As with other forms of checking, reassurance increases doubt. A further problem with this is that it has an impact on relationships. Being asked the same question repeatedly can be draining, and answers may become less sincere, further fueling the problem of doubt. Now I'm going to show you a little diagram chat thing they have here. There you go. I'll leave that on you for a few more seconds so you can pause and have a proper look. Okay, I think that's enough time. Now, was that enough time to read? No, but the reason I leave it up there so you can pause it and then have a proper good look. But I'm going to talk about it quickly. So you have assumptions about harm and responsibility, otherwise known as better safe than sorry. Of course, this is triggered by a trigger, or activated by a trigger, I should say, which goes into your intrusions, the thoughts, at which point you go to responsibility to leave. Once I've had the thought saying could happen, it would be irresponsible not to check, much like the front door. Once that thought goes in your head that you may not have locked the front door, you need to check it because you don't know what could happen. Of course, you doubt yourself, you doubt your memories, because when you go back it probably will be locked and you'll feel like an idiot. You have selective attention, you have your checking rituals, and you have avoidance. In a way, not going out at all is a good way to know that you have, but then again, how do you know you locked the front door then? I'm serious. I mean, I've been in bed before and I've woken up, I've had to check the front door. Gradually, the amount of time Jennifer spent checking, I'm sure you remember Jennifer, heard about a fire and became obsessed with checking everything. The amount of time Jennifer spent checking and the number of different things she checked increased. I think we all know where this is going. Jennifer now spends 2 hours each morning trying to leave the house. She developed a particular order in which she would check to try to be certain that she had been careful enough and checked everything. If her mind wanders from the task or she felt uncertain, she would have to go back to the beginning of the list and start again. She often tried to visualise the things she checked in order to remember whether she had made them safe. She thought about the house a lot in the day and would sometimes have to hurry back home if she thought that she had missed something. Flatmates would try to reassure her that the house was safe, but this was never enough for Jennifer. If you haven't worked it out yet, I'm Jennifer in this scenario, right? Once Jennifer had got into a pattern of checking, she was in a state of red alert and very focused on possible dangers in the house. However, the more she thought about it, the more things occurred to her that she could check. That she should check if she was going to do the job properly. The solution to this was to find ways to check more thoroughly. This had the effect of increasing the focus on danger, but it also set up a very high standard for the checking. She needed to be completely sure that things were safe before she could move on. I know this feeling so damn well. What happens if the OCD carries on growing? Avoidance. Once a checking problem gets worse, it can begin to interfere with many parts of life and even take over. You may find that it is taking so long to leave the house that you're arranging things around the problem, going to things late. You may think that on some days it just isn't worth going out at all, although you may reduce the amount of time checking. You are not free and able to do what you want. Avoidance keeps the problem going, as the beliefs underlying the problem remain unchallenged. For example, I cannot leave the house without checking. Avoidance means that the problem has not gone away, but has been accompanied into your life. In this way, OCD can be very destructive. And we're going to give Jennifer another visit here. Jennifer soon found that she was frequently late for her lectures in the morning, and when she did attend, that she was thinking about her morning checking routine. After a while, it became easier to arrange to do things in the afternoon only. She felt very shameful, but managed to organise things around her worries. However, as she would still have to do several hours of checking in order to leave the house, it soon felt safer and much easier to stay in for most of the day. When people visited, Jennifer would feel extremely worried about whether they had inadvertently turned something on that she had turned off, or perform her checks after they left. Jennifer began to rearrange her life around the problem, fueling the idea that the checks were working well by keeping her from making a mistake. She found that even though she did not go out herself, there were still things to worry about within the house. Her style of thinking and worries about danger became far more of a problem than any actual danger. Summary: a checking problem arises from reasonable concerns, But over time, the checking becomes more of a problem than the thing you fear. It should be clear that the things you do because of those fears actually serve to make the checking problem worse. This works on two different levels. The behaviours keep you anxious and focused on danger, but they also stop you finding out what would happen if you didn't do the check. And so we are back to the little thing here. It's not a chart, it's not a diagram, it's a thing. I don't know what the thing is, but it's a thing. I don't know what it's called, but you get the idea. We're going to read through it as soon as I get my camera up. Better. That's better. Sorry about this, people. I hope I'm not distracting you too much if you are watching. Right. So you have safety-seeking behaviours. Checking things repeatedly, which we've just gone over, so we know. How it keeps the problem going? Because it keeps you focused on danger and increases doubt. Undermines confidence in memory, and it keeps you feeling in a constant state of anxiety. Asking for reassurance. This keeps the problem going because reassurance is a form of checking. It's just that you're passing the buck to someone else now. It makes you feel less certain, as you'll always be able to pick holes in someone's answer because they're not you. Your friend locked the door, but can you really trust them? What if they just thought they did? Think about it. Avoidance. Avoidance means that the beliefs remain unchanged. For example, I cannot leave the house without checking. And so we're on to the next bit. Anxiety-related beliefs. Once I thought that something could catch fire, it would be irresponsible not to check. Well, yes, obviously. You've got to check these things. How does it keep the problem going though? The check is to be focused on danger. If you are checking, you will have more and more thoughts about danger. If you have to act on each one, you will soon find yourself doing lots more checking. Thinking about more and more danger, doing more checking. So, I think we've hit the something on the head here. The more we do it, the worse it's going to get, and the worse we are going to get, which I can say yes, feels about right. I have a very poor memory. That's the book, not me. Although saying that, I would say that my memory isn't perfect. Research shows that people with OCD do not have worse memories than others. This is reassuring to know. However, doing lots of checking makes people less confident about their memory, a problem that they solve by doing more checking. It's like digging a hole, this. You just got to keep digging to make yourself feel better, but by that point you're further down. I can't stop checking until I feel that certain things are safe, which is fair enough, I think. Feelings are not a good way to make decisions. That's very true. Checking makes you feel anxious, and anxiety makes you doubt and feel uncertain. Therefore, it's easy to get stuck in the loop of trying to feel certain by checking, which makes you feel less certain by checking more. Nothing bad has happened, the checking is working to keep me and others safe. Or at least that's what you think. This is a very seductive logic. But perhaps the checking is nothing to do with the fact that nothing bad has happened. It's just about calming the anxiety. And the anxiety taking control of you. Yeah, that's correct. We're on the next bit now. Contamination/washing OCD. Most of us are brought up to be aware of dirt and germs and get into helpful habits of washing our hands after using the toilet or before eating food. As children, we are told to not touch things that are dirty, such as the inside of a rubbish bin or dog feces. That's poo if you don't speak posh. And are warned against spreading germs by sneezing or coughing. I remember being taught that as a kid at school. I remember they used to say coughs and sneezes spread diseases. Coughs and sneezes spread diseases. If you're my age, you probably remember that from school as well. Many people have short periods of time where they become more concerned with disease. From time to time, there is a lot of information in the media telling us to wash our hands to avoid spreading disease such as swine flu, or to avoid food poisoning. Well, yes, I mean, I've been told, I forget who or what told me, that not washing hands is the biggest cause of food poisoning. If someone in your household is ill with flu or diarrhea, then it's sensible to wash your hands after touching them or using the toilet. See, I always wash my hands after using the toilet. Whether it's number 1 or number 2. Always wash my hands. We've all had times when we've been on a bus and touched something slime and wanted to wash our hands straight away when we got home. Very true. Maybe when cooking for other people we might worry about salmonella and be more cautious than usual. You may have had occasions when your hands were physically covered in something unpleasant. You may have come into contact with feces, blood, or an unknown sticky substance, and you probably wash your hands at the earliest opportunity. Yeah, it sounds about right for me. As occasional worries, these things are not a problem. It is normal to want to wash your hands on such occasions, then to carry on doing your usual activities. Even if you prefer to wash your hands after, for example, using public transport, as long as you don't absolutely have to. This is not an obsessive problem. So if you can usually think, I'd like to wash my hands before eating a sandwich but I can't, I'm going to eat it anyway, then this is not a problem for you. This is a problem for me though. However, if you find that you are very preoccupied with dirt and germs every day, worrying that most everyday objects are contaminated with disease, this would lead to you washing your hands repeatedly, and in such a way that exceeds what most people do to avoid disease. In contamination, OCD washing rarely provides anything other than temporary relief from the fear of contamination. With contamination/washing OCD, it is very difficult to feel as if things are clean after washing them following contact with something dirty. It might feel safer to go to great lengths to avoid contact with things that might be dirty. Hand washing may be repeated and ritualized, taking several hours. This is, of course, what is called compulsive washing. Similar washing rules might apply for other bits of the body, clothes, possessions, or home, involving large volumes of antibacterial soap or other cleaning products such as bleach. It might feel important to keep track of what objects are clean or dirty. In contamination OCD, it becomes impossible not to carry out repeated hand washing, as it feels like too big a risk to take. As with other obsessional concerns, the exact worries that bother people are varied and individual. That is very true. Right, we got another little chart thing here. So we'll do this. Examples of problems. Avoiding public toilets. I don't have this one, luckily, but let's read it. Why? Because people with AIDS may have used this toilet. I could come into contact with their bodily fluids and contact HIV. If you do feel like that, people, I sincerely feel sorry for you. I'm quite lucky. I have no qualms about using public toilets. Although the bit where you wash your hands doesn't have soap, I tend to freak out a bit. I remember one time I freaked out a bit and I bought a bottle of Coca-Cola and just used it to wash my hands. I think I paid about £1.50 for that bottle. I was like, it would have been cheaper to buy a little bit of soap and a bottle of water probably. Oh well, what's done is done. Number 2, washing hands after using public transport, which is fair enough, I think. Why though? Someone may not have washed their hands after using the toilet or touching themselves intimately. Okay. This will transfer onto me, which is disgusting and could make me ill. Very true. You'll be surprised how unhygienic some people really are in this world. You really will. Number 3, overcooking food. Why? Because if the food is not properly cooked, then I could, or other people could get food poisoning, become ill and die. And I'm too pretty for prison. Number 4, never making anyone at work a cup of tea. Now that's just rude, I think. Although the germaphobe would disagree. But why would they not do so? I might get germs in the cup and make them ill and they'll blame me. Okay, that's a legitimate concern, I think. Do you have a problem with contamination and compulsive washing? Contamination concerns with compulsive washing are a very common form of OCD. Compulsive washing may be a problem for you if you do all or some of the following. Wash your hands over 20 times a day. I don't. Wash your hands for over a minute each time you wash them. I don't. Follow a strict and thorough pattern of hand washing covering every surface of your hands and wrists, forearms. Up to a point. Yes-ish on that one. Use several bars of soap a week or use bleach or other clean products. No, I don't. I'm very lucky I don't have this one. Wash your hands so much that your hands are red and sore. No. Avoid washing because you know that if you start washing you can't stop. No. Lastly, wash your hands because you feel contaminated by ideas, people or places which are connected in your mind to contamination. No. But I know this bit doesn't overly affect me, but we're going to keep reading people because you can't just do the bit of OCD that covers you. You've got to do the whole thing. You know? Most people wash their hands after going to the toilet. Most, yes, not all, unfortunately. Before eating, when preparing food, and when their hands are physically dirty. Yes, hopefully. For example, after gardening or changing the oil in the car. Very true, I'd wash my hands immediately after doing those two things. If you regularly wash your hands on other occasions, then compulsive washing may be a problem for you. For example, touching door handles, doesn't bother me. Touching letters received in the post, doesn't bother me. Using public transport, doesn't bother me much. Shaking hands with other people, no. Pushing away shopping, no. Touching things which are linked in your mind to bad experiences of people, no. Not surprising, once you start washing your hands a lot, you might want to avoid situations that you consider dirty. This might include avoiding public transport, wearing gloves or using your sleeve to touch things when out, avoiding picnics or going to the beach or parks, avoiding leaving the house altogether. Now I'm quite lucky because I don't feel any of these. As I said, we're going to carry on reading anyway. Do you worry about something bad happening if you don't wash your hands, such as contracting HIV, TB, swine flu, or whatever it is? No, I usually just get a bit paranoid about, things being a bit more dirty. Never really thought about contracting any of those diseases. Or spreading disease to others. Or lastly, having a contaminated thing that you can't get rid of. The last one sounds a bit more familiar, but we shall carry on. Do I have contamination/washing OCD? Are you preoccupied with dirt/germs/disease? Up to a point, yes. Do you feel anxious until you wash your hands? No, I don't. Do you worry the same bad will happen if you don't wash your hands? Yes and no. Do you avoid many people/places/activities as you consider them dirty? No, I don't. How does contamination/washing OCD become a problem? As with other forms of OCD, beliefs we hold about ourselves, other people, and the world around us can be involved in the development of contamination/washing OCD. Could be that people with contamination worries are concerned that others would blame them or think very badly of them did something such as give someone food poisoning. Some people with contamination concerns may have had a bad experience with the disease close to them, or may have been very ill or died. However, we know that not everyone who has these background beliefs or experiences goes on to develop contamination OCD. This is only part of the picture. For a lot of people, there is no obvious reason why these problems arise. Sometimes the problem gets very gradually worse over a number of years, making it difficult to identify a particular point when the problem began. The meaning of the thought/anxiety beliefs. If you're someone who worries a great deal about contamination, it's likely that when you have a thought, what is that on my hand, or what if this chicken has salmonella, or a doubt such as, did I wash my hands properly after using the toilet, you may find it difficult to ignore or dismiss. Believing that you need to do something to avoid potential harm means that you treat these thoughts as important or significant and do something to try to prevent something bad happening. The problem is that while it's possible that something is dirty, this doesn't actually mean it will definitely cause disease or that it is your responsibility to do anything about it. The inflated sense of responsibility that you feel for preventing harm leads to the lengthy washing, which in turn makes it feel like it's important to keep paying attention to dirt or germs to prevent something bad happening, to try to feel less anxious. Now we have a case example. Suze That's S-U-S-E, zoos. As in zoos. Sue's read a lot of magazines with true life stories about people recovering from life-threatening diseases. Sounds like true crime, but with diseases. She knows that a lot of people in the stories have picked up infections or diseases such as MRSA or Salmonella. She started paying more attention to how clean things were in her home, buying antibacterial spray and making sure that she was very careful when preparing food. When she was cooking, she would often think that, what if that had raw meat on it? Or what if that has salmonella, and would throw the food away? Poor Suze. Suze was a sensible person who didn't like taking risks in life. I can understand that. She is also a very sensitive and considerate person, felt very upset when she heard about bad things happening to other people. After reading so many horrible stories, Suze has started to feel very responsible for preventing the spread of any potential contamination or disease. Despite never having contracted a disease in her life so far, she started to feel extremely concerned that it was likely that this would happen and thought about how awful it would be. The idea of a disease or any bodily fluid being on her hands had become extremely frightening, due to the idea that she could die, or what might be even worse, pass disease on to someone else who could become ill and die. And that, people, is it for tonight. I hope you've learned something, because I feel I have. And I hope you are making progress. And I would say it again, seriously, buy this book. Buy this book. There it is. I'll show the side bit so you can see the authors. Actually, if I do that, see? There you go. Break Free from OCD by these people. Actually, it should be like that, shouldn't it? There you go. Seriously, Bill, buy the book. It's a good book. I think if you're watching and you relate to some of these poems, then you would benefit from this. Or another one. I'm sure there's others that are out there just as good, maybe better. So it is good night from me. Good night from the book. Good night from Jennifer Lopez. And good night from Slow Down Milosevic. Bye, everybody.